Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to say, the vibe in the studio today feels a little different. It's a little quieter, maybe a little flickery.
It does. It feels appropriate, though, considering what we have on the table today. It's intimate.
Exactly. I actually thought about lighting a candle in here just to, set the mood. But I was worried about the fire codes.
Probably for the best.
But imagine, if you will, that we are sitting in a small, dimly lit room in upstate New York. It's winter, December 8th, 1965.
Right.
The Beatles are on the radio somewhere, but in this room, it's quiet. And we are watching a flame do something it physically shouldn't be able to do.
That is the setting for the material we are diving into today.
It really is.
And before we get into the mystery of the flame, the philosophy of the self, and some surprisingly juicy gossip from the 1960s, we should probably handle the essentials.
Right. Yeah, let's do that. First and foremost, we need to state clearly that this deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to learn, to explore, and to share. We aren't here to tell you what to believe, but, just to look at the documents and see what they say.
Precisely. And our source material today is very specific. We are looking at session 215 of the early sessions, book 5 of the Seth Material.
Session 215.
And as you noted, this session was recorded on a Wednesday, December 8, 1965.
And we absolutely have to give credit where it's due. This material comes to us from the New Awareness Network.
Yes.
If you find yourself hooked by what we talk about today, and trust me, there's some mind-bending stuff coming up about the nature of the ego, we strongly encourage you to go straight to the source.
Please do. Study the Seth Material books. Visit the New Awareness Network website and bookstore. The address is sexcenter.com, the early sessions.
Really?
There is just no substitute for reading the original transcripts yourself. We're just the guides. The territory is all there in the books.
Okay, housekeeping done. Let's get into that room. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack this single session, 215. And honestly, reading through the notes, it really runs the gamut.
It does.
We've got a physical experiment with a candle that feels like something out of a Victorian seance.
Right.
We've got some incredibly deep philosophy about what the ego actually is. Spoiler alert. It's a flashlight, not a person.
We will definitely get to that.
And then my personal favorite, we have some straight-up local gossip about a 60-year-old bachelor and his love life.
It really does cover the spectrum of human experience. You have the metaphysical, the philosophical, and the very, very social.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that these sessions weren't happening in a vacuum. They were happening to real people with real friends and real dramas.
So set the scene for us. It's 1965. Rob, that's Robert Butts, and Jane Roberts are in their back room. What is the energy like?
Well, Rob is in a bit of a scientific mood. He's the scribe, right? He takes the notes, but he's also the skeptic, or at least the rigorous observer.
The documentarian.
Exactly. He's been noticing something in previous sessions. He's noticed that sometimes when Jane is in a trance, when she's speaking as the personality known as Seth, strange physical phenomena occur.
Like, what kind of phenomena?
Specifically involving candle flames.
It's interesting because usually when we talk about this material, we talk about the words, we talk about the concepts, but Rob is noticing that the environment itself is reacting.
It is, and being the person he is, he's not just taking it on faith. He wants to test it. He is scrupulously rigorous.
So he wants to know, is this real?
Is this real? Is it a draft? Is it Jane breathing heavily? Is it just the heat in the room? So for this session, he decides to run a little secret experiment.
I love this dynamic. It's a husband testing his wife, but really he's testing the universe. It feels so grounded.
In a way, yes, but he's testing the mechanism of the phenomenon. He notes in his journals that if Jane knows he's watching for a miracle, her conscious mind gets in the way.
So it blocks it.
It blocks it. It creates a kind of performance anxiety, essentially.
Yeah.
So he decides to be sneaky.
Walk us through the setup. I want you to really, paint a picture for us.
Okay. So imagine Rev sitting there with his notepad. He takes a thick candle about 5 inches tall. He lights it, but he doesn't put it on the table between them where it would be the focal point. He hides it. He puts it on a shelf beside him, tucked behind some books.
So Jane, who is sitting in her rocker or pacing the room, she can't see it.
Yang cannot see it. And the room is well lit by other lamps, so the extra light from this hidden candle isn't even noticeable. It's a blind test.
And he measures it first. That's the detail that gets me. He's not just eyeballing it.
No, he's taking notes. He records that the flame is burning at a remarkably consistent 3/4 of an inch. That's his baseline.
3/4 of an inch. Got it.
It's a controlled environment, no drafts, No open windows, just a steady 3/4-inch flame.
Okay, so the stage is set. Jane goes into trance. She takes off her glasses. Seth comes through. What happens to the candle?
This is where it gets, chillin'.
I'm ready.
As soon as the session begins, as soon as that energy shift happens and Seth starts speaking, Rob glances over at the hidden candle.
Oh.
The flame has grown. It's no longer 3/4 of an inch. It's now a full inch high, and it's burning steadily.
So it didn't just flicker up because of a breeze or a sudden movement?
No.
It changed its state and just held it.
Correct. And Rob is watching this like a hawk. He notes that the increase wasn't sudden or dramatic like a firework. It just expanded.
Yeah.
And it stayed there. It maintained that new height, burning with absolute stability.
It's like the energy in the room just turned up the volume on the fire.
That's a great way to put it. We often think of energy in these sessions as metaphorical, but Rob is documenting a physical thermal change.
Yeah, this is data.
And here's the correlation that he finds so fascinating. When Jane takes a break, when she snaps out of the trance and becomes Jane again to have a sip of wine or light a cigarette.
Let me guess. The flame drops.
Instantly. It goes back down to the original 3/4 of an inch.
So Jane is on, the flame is up. Jane is off, the flame is down. That's a pretty clear correlation.
It's 1-to-1, and remember, she can't see this candle. She doesn't know it's there. She has no conscious reason to affect it.
But Seth does.
Seth absolutely does. And this leads to a moment later in the session that gives me goosebumps every time I read it.
Okay.
Rob is just observing, writing his notes, trying not to look too suspicious. He hasn't said a word about the candle. And then at the very end of the session, there is a long pause. Jane is silent. Rob is silent. And the flame shoots up again.
Whoa. It's like it's responding to the silence or the intent.
Jane later described it as feeling a thrust of energy toward the candle. She felt Seth focusing sideways on it, and then Seth breaks the silence.
What does he say?
He speaks directly to Rob's secret. He says, "Do not emphasize the candle."
He knew. He knew the whole time Rob was playing detective.
He knew. He says, "Simply have it present during sessions and lit, but do not draw Rupert's attention to it." We want him to consciously forget that the candle is here.
Rupert being the name Seth uses for Jane's greater identity.
Correct.
So let's unpack this. Why does Seth want Jane to forget the candle? Why the secrecy? Is it just to be mysterious?
No, it's actually a lesson in mechanics. It comes down to the role of the conscious mind, or the ego.
Okay.
Seth is suggesting that our conscious expectation, our trying to make something happen, can actually act as a barrier. If Jane knew the candle was there, her ego would say, okay, I need to make the flame grow now. Is it growing? I better push harder. And that anxiety, that rigid effort, would block the natural flow of energy.
It's the watched pot never boils theory of psychokinesis.
Essentially, the ego wants to control. It wants to grip. But these phenomena, according to Seth, operate on an intuitive, spontaneous level. The ego's rigid focus actually freezes the reality it's trying to change.
That is fascinating because it applies to so much more than just candles. It applies to creativity, to sports, to everything.
Right.
When you try too hard to hit the golf ball, you slice it.
Exactly. You have to get out of your own way. You have to let the inner self take the swing.
This is a perfect segue into the meat of this session.
Yeah.
Because while the candle is flickering in the corner, proving this point physically, Seth is launching into this incredibly deep lecture about the nature of the self.
Yeah.
And he starts with this concept of action versus motion.
Right.
Now, this gets a little abstract, so help us break it down.
Right. This is heavy, so bear with me. We usually think that if something isn't moving in space, like a rock sitting on a table or a person sitting in a chair, it has no action. It's still...
Sure, we equate action with physical movement.
No motion, no action.
Yeah.
If I'm not running, I'm not acting.
Exactly.
Seth says that is fundamentally wrong. He says, quote, action is motion, but not necessarily motion that is perceived in physical terms.
So just because I can't see it moving doesn't mean there's an action happening.
Precisely. Think about a thought. Is a thought moving through space? Not really. But it is action. Think about emotion. Think about the atomic vibration inside that still rock.
All action.
That is all action. But our physical senses are tuned to perceive a very specific kind of motion through space.
It's like we're wearing glasses that only show us things that move from point A to point B.
Yeah.
If it moves from state A to state B internally, we're blind to it.
We are blind to the vast majority of action in the universe because we are obsessed with motion. And this connects directly to our perception of time.
How so?
Seth argues that our concept of time is basically just our brain trying to make sense of physical motion. We see the sun move across the sky, we call it time. We see a car drive down the street, we say time has passed.
Right.
But the inner self, the intuition, it doesn't see it that way.
There is this quote I want to read because it really struck me. It feels like a diagnosis of the modern brain.
Okay.
Seth says, logic builds its monuments step by step, one thought before the other. The intuitions are of a more spontaneous nature.
Logic builds its monuments. I love that image. It's heavy. It's laborious. It implies a certain stubbornness, doesn't it?
It does. It makes me think of, have you ever tried to explain a dream to someone?
Oh, it's impossible. And it's excruciating for the listener, too.
Right, because in the dream, you just know everything.
Yeah.
You know that the house is your childhood home, even though it looks like a spaceship. You understand the whole situation instantly.
That's the intuition. That's the gestalt.
But then you wake up and try to use logic to explain it. You have to say, well, first I walked in the door, and then I saw this. You have to lay the bricks one by one.
That is a perfect analogy. Logic is linear. It's a bricklayer. It has to go step 1, step 2, step 3. It cannot skip ahead.
Right.
But intuition is the architect who sees the whole building at once.
And Seth says that physical time clock time is alien to the intuitive self.
Because the intuitive self operates in that gestalt. It perceives the whole picture. It doesn't need to wait for the second hand to tick around the clock to understand the reality. This is why, in these trance states, Seth can access information from the past, present, and future simultaneously. He's not walking down the timeline. He's looking at the whole map.
It's like the difference between walking through a maze and looking at the maze from a helicopter.
Exactly. The ego is in the maze. The inner self is in the helicopter.
This brings us to the absolute highlight of the philosophy segment for me, the flashlight.
The flashlight metaphor. It is one of the most useful tools Seth ever gave us.
I love this because I think we all struggle with our egos.
Right.
We live in a society that is obsessed with the ego. We tend to think, I am my ego.
Of course.
I am this voice in my head that worries about bills, that worries if I look stupid in this shirt, that constructs this narrative of me.
We identify with it completely. We think it's the CEO of our lives. We think it's the captain of the ship.
But Seth says, and I'm quoting here, the ego is also somewhat like a light carried in front of the inner self, a light that gives meaning to the physical universe.
Mm-hmm.
It enables the inner self to manipulate within physical reality.
It's a tool. It is not the master. It is the flashlight.
That changes everything.
Yeah.
If the ego is just a flashlight, then who is holding it?
The inner self. The
Yeah.
whole self. The entity that exists beyond physical time. The one in the helicopter.
But the flashlight thinks it's the person.
Yes. Seth actually calls the ego's self-importance highly ludicrous.
I love that.
He says, ego's concept of itself as a rock of unchanging identity is highly ludicrous.
It's funny when you think about it. Imagine a flashlight walking around a dark room saying, I am the creator of light. I am the only thing that exists. Look at this chair I just discovered. I made this chair happen.
Right.
Meanwhile, the person holding is like, buddy, I'm just pointing you at the chair so I don't stub my toe.
That's it. The ego focuses on specific things, like the chair or the bill or the awkward conversation. It lights them up so we can deal with them. That's its job.
It manipulates physical reality.
But it can't see the whole room. It can't see into the shadows.
And when we try to use the flashlight to understand the whole room, the meaning of life, or these psychic phenomena, we fail. Because a flashlight can only see a narrow beam.
And that connects back to the candle experiment. Rob's ego wanted to see the candle grow. He wanted to shine the flashlight on it.
Right.
But the growth happened in the dark, in the intuitive space. When you turn the flashlight off, when Jane dissociated, the magic happened.
So the takeaway here is, don't let the flashlight run the show. Use it, but remember there's a whole you standing behind it in the dark.
Precisely. The ego is necessary for physical survival. You need it to cross the street and not get hit by a bus, but it is not equipped to understand the nature of the soul.
Okay, so we've done the physics of the candle, we've done the philosophy of the flashlight. Now I want to see this inner self in action.
Okay.
Because Seth doesn't just talk a big game, he proves it. In this same session, they do a series of remote viewing experiments.
These are the famous envelope tests or remote perception tests.
Right, so usually Rob would have an envelope with something in it, but here they're also targeting specific people. They are trying to see if Seth can tune in to people who are hundreds of miles away. The first target is a woman named Peggy Gallagher. She's in Washington, D.C. at the time.
And remember, this is 1965, no internet, no cell phones, no GPS tracking. Rob and Jane are in a quiet room in upstate New York. Peggy is hundreds of miles away in the capital.
So Jane, as Seth, starts describing what Peggy is doing and seeing, and the details are, they're random, but they're specific.
Yeah.
They aren't, she is feeling happy, they are granular.
That's the hallmark of genuine remote viewing. It's rarely, I see Peggy signing a bill at the Capitol. It's sensory fragments. It's raw data.
For example, Seth mentions a white taxi cab.
With a round symbol on it. Very specific.
He mentions a yellow wastepaper basket.
Specifically yellow.
And florist's flowers. Roses, maybe.
And the name McNamara.
Now, later, they get a report back from Peggy, and the accuracy is startling.
The yellow wastebasket really stands out to me. It's such a mundane detail. Why would you make that up?
Right.
If you were guessing or cold reading, you'd say, I see a desk, or I see a lamp, or I see a monument. Everyone has a desk. But a yellow wastebasket.
So specific.
That is a specific visual hit. That is the flashlight of the inner self catching a detail.
And he mentions a hesitation at a gate, a group waiting for clearance.
Which fits perfectly with being in D.C., possibly around government buildings or events. It captures the texture of her experience. It's not just a visual, it's a feeling of movement and stoppage.
Then he moves on to a second target, a Dr. In-Stream. Now, this one feels different. With Peggy, it's very visual taxes, wastebaskets. With Dr. In-Stream, it feels emotional.
Yes. Seth describes the doctor in his room. He sees a photo of his wife, which is a standard verification, but then he goes straight to the internal state.
What does he pick up?
He says he picks up discouragement regarding some hypnosis experiments the doctor's working on.
He says the experiments are temporarily at a standstill.
But, and this is the calm expert voice of Seth coming through, he says the mood will lift by Sunday.
That's bold. He's not just reading the room. He's predicting a future mood swing.
It shows that for the inner self, emotions are just as tangible as wastebaskets. Discouragement is a thing you can see. It has a shape. It has a weight.
There's also this really weirdly specific detail with Dr. In-Stream. Seth describes a piece of paper with neat indentation, perhaps 5 lines or so.
He thinks it might be poetry.
The indentations are so neat. I love that phrasing. It's like he's looking over the guy's shoulder, squinting at a notepad.
It demonstrates that remote perception isn't high-definition video. It's impressionistic. He sees the shape of the text, the spacing, the dull gold-edged pages of a book underneath it.
He's piecing together a sensory collage.
He's acting like a detective in the non-physical.
It's detective work, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then we get to the actual envelope test. And this is where the episode takes a turn into what I can only describe as cosmic gossip.
The Roy Fox incident. This is my favorite part because it's just so human.
Okay, so the actual test object, the thing inside the sealed envelope that Rob prepared, is a woodblock print. It was made by their friend, a local artist named Roy Fox.
Right, a black and white print. Very distinct.
So does Seth talk about the print? Does he describe the black ink or the wood grain or the subject matter?
Barely. He glances at it psychically and then immediately pivots to the artist himself.
He basically ignores the artwork to talk about the artist's personal life.
Right.
He mentions a lack of discretion.
And a connection to a February event.
Rob explains this in the notes, and it's hilarious. Apparently, Roy Fox, who is a bachelor in his 60s, was, at the time, dating a married woman.
A woman separated from her husband but not divorced. In 1965, that is a scandal.
And Roy was apparently very happy about it, but also not very quiet about it.
Hence the lack of discretion.
I just love the idea that you're trying to prove the existence of ESP. You're tapping into the universal consciousness, and the universal consciousness is like, hey, have you heard about Roy? He's really oversharing about his girlfriend.
It humanizes the phenomenon, doesn't it? It shows that the inner self isn't just concerned with high-minded philosophy or geometric shapes.
No.
It cares about people. It cares about relationships. The energy attached to that woodblock print wasn't just ink on paper. It was the emotional resonance of Roy Fox.
It's the vibe of the object. The object was a conduit to Roy.
Exactly. To the inner self, the object and the creator of the object are linked. You pick up the print, you pick up the scandalous love affair.
But there's another layer to this test that is fascinating from a physics standpoint. The bleed through.
Oh, right. The purse. This is where it gets technically very interesting.
Yes. So back during the Peggy Gallagher reading, the one with the taxi and the wastebasket, Seth mentioned a shoulder variety pocketbook being misplaced.
And at the time, Jane thought, that doesn't feel like it belongs to Peggy.
And she was right. It didn't. But later, when they get to the Roy Fox section, Rob realizes something.
What?
That detail about the lost purse. It happened to Jane.
Wait, break that down for me.
Jane had lost her purse, a shoulder variety purse, at the inn where Roy Fox had his art show.
So Seth mentioned a lost purse while talking about Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
But the purse was actually connected to Roy Fox, who was the next target.
Or rather, it was connected to the location where Roy's art was shown.
So the information leaked. It bled across the timeline.
We call it bleeding. It's like watercolor paints running into each other.
Right.
To the logical mind, the bricklayer, target A is Peggy and target B is Roy. They are separate boxes. They are separate envelopes.
But to the intuition, the flashlight holder, it's all one fluid picture.
Exactly. The information about Roy and the purse was floating around in the same pool as the information about Peggy. The inner self grabbed a bit of both.
That is mind-bending. It implies that separation is just another illusion of the ego.
It supports the whole philosophy of the session. Time and separation are artificial constructs. To the inner self, Roy the purse, Peggy the candle.
They're all accessible at once.
Yes, the barriers we see, this is envelope A, this is envelope B, aren't really there.
It's messy, but it's a beautiful kind of mess. It feels organic. If reality were a computer program, this would be a glitch.
Yeah.
But since reality is organic consciousness, this is just how it flows.
So, we've gone from a flickering candle in a quiet room, proving that intent can change physics, to the realization that our ego is just a flashlight and we're something much bigger, to remote viewing a yellow wastebasket in D.C.
To gossiping about a friend's love life.
And finally seeing how all these things bleed into each other because separation is an illusion.
It is quite a journey for one Wednesday night in 1965.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the Seth Material so enduring. It's not just dry theory. It's grounded in these real, messy human moments.
It's high philosophy mixed with lost purses.
It is. It invites us to look at our own lives differently. It asks us to question our own flashlight. So what's the big takeaway here? For someone listening to this while driving to work or folding laundry or walking the dog, how do they use this?
For me, it's about the flashlight. We spend so much energy polishing the flashlight, worrying about the flashlight, identifying with the flashlight.
Sure.
We think the beam of light, our job, our status, our daily worries, is all there is. But this session invites us to relax.
To realize we are the one holding the light.
Yes, and that sometimes the most magical things, like the candle growing, or the sudden solution to a problem, or that intuitive hunch, happen when we stop trying to point the beam directly at them, when we let them happen in the periphery.
Sometimes you have to let the candle burn in the shadows. You have to take your eye off the ball to let the magic happen.
Exactly. Trust the dark. Trust the intuition. The information is there. The connection is there. Okay. You don't have to force it with logic.
Logic is just the bricklayer.
Let the architect do some work.
That is a comforting thought. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to figure it all out with your conscious mind.
No, you really don't.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground. Again, if this sparked something in you, if you felt that little intuitive nudge, please go deeper. Don't just take our word for it.
Yes. Read the early sessions. Go to sethcenter.com/the early sessions. Support the New Awareness Network. There are volumes of this material, and session 215 is just one tiny, fascinating drop in the ocean.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought, a little something to chew on while you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
We talked about the ego being a flashlight, and we talked about how it helps us navigate the physical world.
Right.
But here's the question. If your ego is just a flashlight, and you are the one holding it, what happens if you turn it off? Just for a second.
That's the scary part.
What happens if you stop trying to see and manipulate everything and just trust what's in the dark? What happens to the flame when you stop watching it?
That is where the real adventure begins.
Who knows? You might just make a candle flame grow.
Or find a lost purse.
Exactly. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Catch you in the next one. Stay curious.
Goodbye.